Hi, it's Corrine. Welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for stopping by today. So I just wanted to show quickly my inspiration. This is from Color Cube Volume 2. And here is the finished stencil. So I just wanted to show how I came to this. I used some Concord and 9th inks, and I did not follow this completely because I wanted a little bit something brighter in here, whether it was going to be yellow or pink. So how I came to this is I used Color Cube 266, and for this color, which was my main flower, I used Rainforest. Then I chose for the two leaves, because I did want them to have a little bit of a variation. I think it shows a little bit more on here. I did it much lighter, which I think turned out pretty. For these, I used Sprout and Grasshopper. But then I wanted it to be a little darker at the base, so I brought in Artichoke. So that's how I came to those colors using these. And then instead of using the black or this darker color here, this blue, that's when I brought in pink. So for pink, I chose Watermelon, and then I wanted to deepen it a little and choose Honeysuckle because I thought those would look good with these colors here that I chose. And then I did want a little bit of a yellow, but I chose Stardust because I thought that went well with these colors also. I didn't think a bright yellow would look good, so I used a little bit more of a golden yellow. So I started with Gina K Amalgam ink, and I only show I think two times that I stamped it, but I really did have to stamp this like 4 times because my ink pad's pretty dried out. And I'm going to ink directly on my die cut piece. I will show you here in a moment how I partially die cut that, just in case you've never seen that before. And I also, my head got in the way, so I just edited it out, but I do place some green masking tape right at the top of that design because I want the option to put this design back in my MISTI, and being that the paper overlays my MISTI, I couldn't just put it right in the corner. So instead, I just put some masking tape there, and this way I could put my design right back in and butt it up against that masking tape to stamp again on it. So I placed down my die. I did tape it down just so it didn't move, and I put my cutting plate where I wanted to cut, and I wrap some masking tape around that to hold it all in place. And I'll turn it around here and put it through my die cutting machine this way. Wherever the plate is cutting is where it will cut. Therefore, it'll give you a mostly partial die cut. You do need to take either some scissors or a craft knife. In my case, I'm taking a craft knife and just cutting where the design doesn't cut. So this is actually not the original design. I realized that I didn't have the video recording going, so I did another one just to show on camera how to do this. But on my first one, I did use a pencil line to try and get as straight as possible. So you just want to cut wherever the design doesn't cut, carefully pull that out, and you have your partial die cut piece. And I made it long because I planned on wrapping it around a card base. So for my color inspiration, like I showed you at the beginning of this video, I'm using the Color Cube 266. That's the Sarah Renee Clark. And I'm also using Altenew's Mixed Blooms. This is such a gorgeous set. I pulled out my Simon Says Stamp glass mat board. I believe it's a 9x12, and I have the 9x12 Ultra Altenew sticky grip mat on it. And what I like to do is take those color combinations I have a book where all my swatches of inks are in there, and I just kind of find an ink that seems to match well. I'm okay with mixing inks, whether it's different brands, but in this case I happened to find all Concord and Ninth brands that I was happy with, that I thought went well with my color cube inspiration colors. So the Ultra Grippy Stick Mat really helps because it just holds your stencil in place along with your paper. I did mask off some parts of the stencil that I didn't want to accidentally ink when I was inking parts of it. And I'm also using an acetate piece there just to keep those covered up so I don't get ink where I don't want it to go. And that's why you'll see me wipe off some of the stencil. I try not to wipe too hard because there's such delicate pieces in the stencils, but I just carefully wipe it to get most of the ink off in hopes to not transfer it to a different part of the stencil. For my main flower, I pulled out Concord and Ninth's Rainforest. This is the first time I've worked with this color. It's one of my new favorite colors. It is so pretty. So on the first layer, I did a lighter inking of it and darker around the base of the petals. And then this is the second inking of it. I'm gonna go even darker just to give it some variation in the petals. So pretty. So I'm also using some full sticky post-it notes, again just marking off places that I don't want to get ink on the stencil. And the Altenew stencils, they come with a guide showing you how to use them. They're pretty easy to use. So I started with the one that is etched in it with the number 1, and then you use the top part, then you move it up, use the bottom part, and then you finish off the stencil with the second stencil. This one specifically, I think, comes with 6 stencils, so you can use it with the stamp or without the stamp if you want like a no line coloring, which I plan to do soon. I haven't tried that one with this mixed blooms. So for the pink, I used watermelon, and then I darkened it a little bit with honeysuckle. So pretty. So I clean up my workstation and give it just a few minutes to dry, and here's where I put it back into my Misty marking using those tape markings. And this was a little scary for me because if you're off even the slightest, it gives it like a blurry look. Obviously it gives it, you know, 2 lines. So I used some VersaFine Onyx black ink, and it turned out so pretty. I didn't want to take the heat tool to it because it might bubble it or warp it a little, so I let that sit overnight. In the meantime, I just wanted to show you this 3D binder. I can't speak today, I'm sorry. This 3D, these 3-ring binder that I made probably about 5 years ago. And this is where I have all my inks sampled. And in those 2 pockets, I put 2 pockets with different color variations. So if I want to see what colors layer well together, I have like a little cheat sheet. So I have them separated by brand. I have some extra ones in the back in case my ink collection grows. And I have large stencils that don't fit where I keep the stencils. I keep them in that binder as well. So I just wanted to share that with you. I pulled out my color cardstock from Concord and Ninth and my swatch because I was going to see which colors, but I knew right away when I looked at it that I was pretty sure that I wanted to use the same rainforest that I did the main flower with, and it is so pretty. So I wasn't sure if I was just going to put this piece on the front of the card. I decided to wrap it around a card base. So what looked good to me on the card, I just went ahead and gave it a crease with my scoreboard. I'm erasing my pencil lines, and then I'm going to wrap it around the card, so I didn't want just a flat edge. So I pulled out Martha Stewart's scallop lacy border punch, and it turned out really pretty. So this piece here is 6 by 6 before I cut it with the border, and then I'm using for the card base a 5 by 6. The white, I ended up cutting down to where it matched the card. It wrapped around, like I said, as 6 inches, and it wrapped around. And I did glue the top, as you can see here. I'm using some Beacon Fabri-Tac glue, and I put a piece of paper on top and really press that down with my bone folder, just in case any of the ink, I didn't want the ink to get anywhere. So pretty. So I pulled out a Gina K, I think it's Fancy Phrases, is the Stampin' die. I need to build up my stash of birthday cards. So I pulled out the happy birthday. I have the matching die to go with it. And I went ahead and stamped this using my Misty because this is the first time using the stamp. So I do condition it slightly with my fingers, but I did stamp it, I think 3 times just to give it a nice bold black stamping. Again, VersaFine Onyx Black, that's my favorite black to use. Does take a little while to dry, so you either want to heat set it or just be careful. I don't show this on camera, but when I ran it through my die cut machine, I put a scrap piece of copy paper over it just so it didn't. So I did put some paper over it just in case it was still a little bit wet, and I was very careful not to touch it. So I cut out a few more of the shadow die because I love for it to be like a chipboard thickness on the front. I just think that it looks good and it feels good to the recipient. Glued those together, so I think there's 4 layers total, and I'm just using a fine tip bottle with some Barely Art glue in it. And I did have a hard time deciding where I wanted it because these flowers are so pretty. I really didn't want to cover it up. I am pulling out some embellishments, and I absolutely love these black clay hearts. I think they tie in with the sentiment very well. So I pull out 3 of those, but I also love these clear dewdrops. I think these are from Trinity Stamps, and they add a lot to the card, but they're not extremely flashy. So I thought adding both, it turned out really pretty. So using the same matching Rainforest ink, I am stamping the inside and many more sub-sentiment at the top. And I decided to go ahead and use that same outline. It was sitting out anyways in my Misty. So I'm going to just add that to the bottom of the card, but I'm going to do 2nd generation stamping. I'm going to stamp most of the ink off on a scrap piece of paper first and then press it down. That way it gives it just a really pretty outline and it dries back really nice. I can easily write my sentiment over it. So I gave that a press and my card is done. If you have any questions, please leave them down in the comments section, and please, if you've not subscribed to my channel, consider subscribing, giving me a thumbs up, and leaving me a comment. Thanks so much for stopping by. Have a great day.